right. Welcome to the Sciarone Salon, where I, Tascha Sciarone, the art historian and eldest sister, attempts to explain art and philosophy to my younger sisters, all of whom are artists, philosophers, or art theorists. All have the same artist mother, but philosophy is meant to be learned in a conversation. And I'm Tascha, and this is...
Hi, I'm Monica. I am Tasha's sister, number three.
Monica is my sister and an intuitive artist that has organized and taught at art retreats. So today is our third episode, which is about art critique versus art philosophy. So this is way away from your bed show where you are creating art, but this is how people talk about art and or what's the difference between critiquing art and what's the difference between art philosophy. Are you ready for this?
Okay, let's go.
I'm dragging Monica into the deep end of A.A. van den Braembusche's mind. So that is the Belgian philosopher that we're currently looking at. Did you know that this philosopher basically argues that every time you get teary-eyed in a museum, you're not just feeling something, you're actively performing in a piece of philosophical interpretation.
Okay, so what is your question exactly? I do feel like I do not know about this philosopher, but I do feel like with art, whatever it is, if it's not a museum or something on the streets, if it does evoke an emotion, it's already a conversation you're having. And I feel like that is also very beautiful about art. It is a conversation you're having, and everybody's emotions or reaction, like you can have with it, if it's like a question, like why did he do that? I think that's actually really beautiful that it can bring up emotions. So I think art can be very powerful, and I do agree.
Okay, yeah. So this is also where a little bit the problem comes in with his this way of thinking. People are like, okay, but if I like it or don't like it, whatever goes. So this is what we're going to get into the crux of this thing because every reaction and interaction with art is valid, but that doesn't make that doesn't make everything goes. So that's what we're going to get into today. Monica, we're going to tackle this big question: what is the difference between art critique and art philosophy, and does one need the other? So let's meet our philosopher A. van den Braembussche. He was a Belgian professor, which I've mentioned before, and his real playground was the philosophy of history, how we tell stories about the past. Because his core question is the same for both. Is our understanding of the past or a work of art a discovered truth or a constructed story? He believed it's always a construction. We build narratives using the tools of our culture, language, and personal bias. So that also gets into what you said a little bit as well. That was just like a really the core question is, are we constructing narratives? He says yes. Or are we discovering narratives? And he says, no, we are constructing them based on our
So let
culture.
me get this straight. Is it like we as a collective or as an individual looking at the art?
The individual is informed by the collective. So let's see if we can deep dive into this. Okay, so the key concept, the first one is the narrative construction of meaning. This means that every piece of art criticism, every review, every museum label, it's not a neutral fact sheet. It's a story. A critic framing an artist's life as a tragedy is making a narrative choice that shapes how we see the work.
Okay.
So we're trying to get what is the difference between art critique and art philosophy. And we're saying that art critique is actually very not neutral.
Yeah, because it's critique, stating a thing as it is, and it's putting it constructive in the way the person or whatever sees it, and like you said, like it tells a story and it puts it down like that. And philosophy, what I understand with that is also asking questions, and it's broadening things and making you think deeper about things. And then, yeah, critique is it doesn't necessarily have to be the truth.
Yeah, that's true because philosophy, like you said, is about asking the questions like, why do we have these narratives? And that gets us to like the second concept, that the critique of the meta narratives. These are the big overarching stories we tell about art itself. Like art is about beauty, or art is a linear progression towards modernism. Van den Braambussen was skeptical of these, arguing they are just powerful stories that have been privileged over others, often silencing different perspectives. It's awareness that there's just never one true story. So we still have to deep dive. Okay, we're going to get to the end of this, what the difference between art philosophy and art critique, but actually you already said it. The one is about asking questions about how we react, why we react. and why narratives are like they are. The biggest strength of this approach is that it democratizes art interpretation. It argues that your personal emotional response, Monica, is a valid and crucial part of the artwork's meaning. You don't need a PhD to have a legitimate take. It also gives us the tools to challenge the established power structures and gatekeepers of this art world. So that is how a lot of people don't know about Braembussche, the philosopher, like how he has shaped how our modern museums are interpreted. Do you like this way of looking at art?
Looking at art, can you reframe the question, be more specific?
So we were just talking about how art philosophy is asking the questions about how we respond to it. And art critique is actually a way of responding. Even this is also why we have Monica on the show, because learning about art just in academic settings, you are really removed from how other people understand and form art.
But so if I understand this correctly, so this philosopher, this Belgian philosopher, he set up the way how museums are set up right now. And there are different stories being told about different art pieces.
Yeah.
And this doesn't give like a hold on to us as the viewer, the one who experiences the art, who goes to the museum. Like it doesn't have any hold on to you because it has different stories. So your question is, how do I feel about this, or how do I respond about this take of museums being set?
Yeah, you made like a really cool painting about these two little bluebirds that looked like they were in love. And I was like, oh, this is a really cute, lovely painting. But then you went on to explain how much geometry was in that painting. And so you also, as an artist, how do you feel about that people can interpret your artwork in different ways?
I feel like art can be like a really good reflection, or it's a reflective. So I've had paintings where somebody saw like a pregnant woman, somebody saw something completely different. And some people did understand after I created it. And some people don't even have an explanation, like, oh, what they see, but they just feel really not seeing it. So I feel like every art piece can be very personal.
And then these are like the multiple narratives that you included or didn't know you were including while making it.
Yeah.
Which on the one hand needs like an explanation for people to get the depth of this painting.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, people also viscerally or physically reacting to the painting of what they see and also the information they get.
Yeah.
And then, so you can critique the painting on basis of, oh, that's a very romantic, beautiful blue painting. It makes use of golden. That's the art critique going, oh, this is. And then when they get more information, they're like, oh, they can insert your process or your biographical data to further critique the art. And so then art philosophy is allowing for the multiple viewpoints.
Yeah.
I want to actually first give a contemporary example around the debate of AI art. A traditional critic might discuss its technical merit. A philosopher using this framework would ask, what narratives are we constructing about creativity and the artist? With this new technology, is the story we're telling one of human obsolescence? No more humans are gone, human obsolescence. Or are we talking about collaborative evolution? So it doesn't matter, is the art critique will be like, is the art beautiful? Is it traditional? Is it, what style is it using? But art philosophy, what are the conversations we're having on this? How do you actually feel about AI art?
Okay, so I actually went a couple months back this summer. I went to a museum in Tilburg, and there was a whole section just with AI art, and it was quite depressing because it was not pretty. And I know like art doesn't mean to be pretty, but I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine who went with me to the museum. She's an art teacher, and she said like the whole thing they learn at the art studying art is more of a philosophic approach than actually just creating art for the sake of art.
Yeah.
I just feel like maybe the more we go into the more of the way of the artificial way of life, people are going to create more authentic human things.
Yeah.
The human experience.
But so art philosophy, to reiterate, because we're trying to understand what's the difference between art critique and art philosophy, is the questions we ask about the meta-narrative with art philosophy. So no matter what I feel, no matter what Monica feels, they're both right and they should have equal weight. Or as my partner goes, oh, that fire hydrant's really red and shiny and it really talks about like us having to be aware of the safety issues. So that's a little bit where non-art people go, oh, but I can just bullshit my way about art as well. Like, I can just say anything and it becomes art.
I have a take on that. I feel that I love the bullshitting. It's part of the creative thought processing.
No, but fuck your
No, red, but it does make sense because red, and we symbolize the color also of red being for
danger, alertness.
Yeah.
But what I then tell him,
color theory.
what I then tell him, you're good at bullshitting this, but the fire hydrant was never presented to you as an artwork to think about this. Even though he's interacting with this fire hydrant, that it's an artwork, he's the only one doing it. After that, there is no interaction. He didn't talk about it. He didn't present it. So that when that interaction ends, it stops being an artwork, technically.
So that's what you mean art becomes when it starts being interacted with.
Yeah.
And because he's the only one interacting it doesn't make it art.
Yeah. So that's where then the biggest critique of it's not anything goes. You actually have to talk about it, write it down.
So this is like the saying, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody witnesses, did it really happen? Kind of thing feels this to me.
This is exactly this. And I actually have a lot of fights with artists when I tell them, I'm like, art stops existing the moment people stop interacting with it. And they're like, no, but what about the artwork in museum depots? I'm like, I've been a registrar at a museum. That means that you like look it up and you write extra things with it. You make sure that it's available for the curators to make a show about it. Someone's interacting with that art piece, whether it is documenting it, not calling it the artwork, but just calling it B196 in Curation Hall in the depot of on that and that street. But because someone has written about it, every time someone reads about that written account, for example, like when we had to read academic texts, you are interacting with that artwork, even though you haven't seen it. Yeah, that is actually the philosophical question. Did it actually happen? And now with that thing about the painting of your bluebird, like I know about it, you know about it, like the people that saw it at a few exhibitions know about it, but it is being interacted with daily by your friend whose house it's in. So it keeps on being an artwork. But the moment, let's say they just put it in storage or shove it under a bed, it stops being an artwork.
Yeah.
And this makes artists so angry.
Yeah, I do have like my own philosophy about art. It's just not just tangible, but do you understand what you're saying here? If it's visible, if it's interacted with, if it's written about, if it's like it exists and it's more tangible. But it's in text, people go so from different ways learn about it or they read about it, or maybe it's published in a magazine or social media or it's exhibited again. I understand that. And I also understand the other part of the fight you have with all this, because the inner side of me is also, just because you can't see anything doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
But then it brings me back to my partner and his fire hydrant bullshit story.
Yeah.
That fire hydrant is no longer considered art. Like, it's considered art
But
now.
it's been created. So
Well-
it's like, the question is, what is art? But with anything that is created, I think this is also opening a philosophy question.
This is a philosophy podcast. To get a little bit more into this, do you know that we have less than 1% of all art that's ever been created is in museums or is remembered? We have lost 99% of all arts in our history because the way we carve our tables and stuff like that's lost, because if the table has too many scratches or burned down with the house, it's used for burnt wood. The critique is, like I said, anything goes relativism. Everything is art. If you follow Braembussche's idea that all narratives are important, all reactions are important and carry equal weight. If all interpretations are constructed narrative, is a shallow hot take as valid as a deeply researched analysis? Does this devalue expertise? Like, so my partner has no background in art. My partner did rocket science. He didn't finish, but so then his hot take is that actually art critique or art philosophy? That's what people ask now. But then you can see there's a nuance between my partner bullshitting about that and how you feel about the art existing in your studio, even though you might have not been for 2 months.
Yeah.
And because it still exists here, you're still interacting with it emotionally.
Yeah, true.
So in that sense, it's still art.
Yeah, but I also have, there's a lot of pieces that I don't show the wall. And that also that doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't, okay.
And another critique on Braembussche, one I'm sure you'll appreciate, Monica, is that this can make philosophy on the art too detached from the art itself. So you can get so wrapped up in analyzing the framework that it forgets the raw, messy, and beautiful experience of just looking at art. So like also this art philosophy of how he describes it, the person interacting with the painting of yours.
Their own emotional experience, what they're having with the art piece. I feel like the interaction, what a person is having, if I created something and somebody's having their negative or neutral or positive experience with the interaction with the piece, it's already not part of it. It's not none of my business actually, because that is between them. Yeah.
And that's also people expressing their ideas about your artwork isn't also necessarily then critique or philosophy. It's then only the interaction. But then a potential counter argument is that the goal isn't to say that all narratives are equal, but to encourage us to build better narratives that are more ethical, inclusive, and self-aware. And that understanding the engine doesn't have to ruin the magic of the drive. It can deepen our appreciation of the machine. And I can tell you now that every art historian will tell you now they strongly dislike Picasso. And do you know about this? Okay, but Picasso is like one of those last unsung heroes of the great artist. But he's also like the one that says stuff like, oh, I'm like he's having an affair with a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girl
With him.
under 20.
Oh.
She will have no more value in her life past being young and beautiful.
I understand the question like with ethics, and is this kind of a story or something, a figure you want to share with our children?
I was like, okay, you want to get into it? No, we dislike him. Like, he stole art from Africa. He stole art from, people. And he's like, wow, I'm such a genius. And he made millions. But he also, the woman he painted, he emotionally distressed them. But the core narrative around his art was, oh, he is a great artist. He's a great man. And because of those honorifics, those constant honorifics, the power that came with studying art, the power of making him such a central person, he used to abuse the woman in his life, and he used to.
That's not something I want to.
Yeah, and so
give L to.
No, but
Shut up.
Yeah, but so what we get here is that Braembussche allows us to go look at those narratives, because the average person is like, oh, Picasso is great because the narrative we get spoon-fed is he's amazing.
Case me. Enough power fan.
So like having multiple, and we didn't have that in art history until the 1970s, while Picasso was still.
But I feel like this is a good thing, going back and asking questions. What makes somebody amazing? Or what do we want to learn from the great masters in history? And who do we want to put as the power, or not even power feed anybody anymore, but who can we learn from? And what kind of roads we do not want to go take in the future, and make sure like something like that doesn't happen again.
So this brings us to our final question for the audience. Is the idea that art meaning is a constructed narrative still relevant today? Or does it just like lead to pointless overthinking? And then you can send us an email to thesciaronesalon@gmail.com. So that's the, and Sciarone, Sciarone, salon@gmail.com. And we will read your thoughts on our finale. And that is a wrap on our clash between critique and art philosophy. So, Monica, how do you feel about this?
I feel really good. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation me and Tascha had about philosophy and the critique in art and our points of views, and how I stand or how I'm looking at it as an artist. And I'm going to rethink about writing more about my art probably and showing it more. It becomes more real. Thank you for that.
Yeah. It's not real until we've shown it on the podcast.
Yeah. So, and until next time, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you enjoyed the next with the next sister.
Review us, tell your friends and family, and thank you very much for listening to the Sciarone Salon. Bye.
Bye.